Hello, and welcome to the Governance Blueprint 2.0 video series. My name is John Landgrave, and I'm a Power Platform architect focusing on governance and security. You may remember me from my original Governance Blueprint 1.0 series that was released a few months ago. In that series, I focused on core security and governance practices designed to secure the Power Platform for building productivity applications that extend Office 365. Although there have been some product updates, the core guidance around securing your tenant, the default environment, and managing Teams environments using the COE Starter Kit hasn't changed a lot. If you haven't watched that series, I would encourage you to start there. In this series, we'll discuss the governance capabilities of the Power Platform, which allow you to build, deploy, and support enterprise applications outside of the default environment. I encourage you to think big about how Power Platform can be applied in your business. The more you build on the platform, the lower the cost per solution, and more importantly, the greater value is delivered across your business. As an example of this, let's take a look at how Chevron leveraged the Power Platform. They started with Power Platform to solve a single problem, and that paid off in millions of dollars of value. This has led them to adopt the platform enterprise-wide. Once the CIO heard about this initiative, the question he asked wasn't, "What's our next app?" Instead, he asked, "How do we transform 1,000 processes a year?" That was their big thing. What is thinking big for you? Let's look at this example in more detail. What you see here in the picture is an exploration oil rig off the Gulf of Mexico. It costs $500,000 to run one of these each and every day. And what software platform did Chevron historically use to run these $500,000 a day operations? That's right, the international leader in databases, Microsoft Excel. 57 spreadsheets, 40 to 60 human experts, 9 to 12 months to plan a single mission. Chevron tried multiple times to replace their spreadsheets with custom software. They spent $1 million to build a piece of software, and still that couldn't produce anything that their teams could use. It was very difficult to take the requirements in the heads of mechanical engineers about mud oil viscosity and ball bearing fault tolerance and put that into the head of a software engineer to produce working software. They hit pause on the project. They brought in a new team, and that new team brought Power Platform with them. Within 8 weeks, they had a pilot going in the field on an actual project. A couple of months later, they standardized on it for the entire Gulf of Mexico. A couple of months after that, they adopted it to their other operating theaters. Within a few more months, they started commercializing this product with a partner to transform their cost center into a revenue center. The reason I share this example is because it's a great example of the power of using low code. With low code, they were able to take the uninteresting, repeatable parts of the business software development process. Where's the data stored? What's the data model we use that represents products, schedules, and services? How do we express that as a web app? How do we deploy it to iOS or Android? How do we integrate it with Entra ID? How do we point it to other data sources in the organization? All of these questions that need to be answered on a technical side normally take a lot of the time in designing the actual application. But because Power Apps and Power Platform manages these things for you, Chevron was able to focus their time and effort on activities that were specific to their business process. The Chevron example is also a great example of what we call a pattern of value. That is that Chevron recognized that by taking a simple pattern, which was using productivity applications that have turned into enterprise applications and re-envisioning them with enterprise-grade features, their low-code developers could create true enterprise apps that have the same robustness, security, and management capabilities of classic apps that take months or years to develop and just as long to maintain. Over the last couple of years, we've seen other common application patterns that our enterprise customers implement when building low-code applications using the Power Platform. Many of these customers had a specific area of value in mind when they chose to adopt the platform. Some customers think of it as a tool for citizen development. Others might think of it as an automation solution or a way to create small applications and embed them into teams. Let's discuss some of the more common patterns that customers have implemented as they began adopting low-code practices in their enterprise application development. One of the most common patterns is designed to accelerate professional development. Given both the low unemployment rate and the scarcity of available developers, it's hard for a business to attract and retain professional development talent. But lack of resources doesn't reduce the needs from the business. Those continue to grow. To help with this scenario, Power Platform can reduce the time and effort needed to create new applications. Many customers have looked at integrating both low-code and pro-code developers to accelerate the development process. For example, they might use the Power Platform for the application UI, administration tools, automation, and other areas of the application, connected to the core services that the professional developer creates to add value to the business. The ability to use a consistent UI framework eliminates the need to build a lot of the common elements of an application. This saves time, keeps pro devs focused on the value-generating aspects of an app, and allows faster time to value for the business. This not only saves time, but it also keeps pro devs focused on the value-generating aspects of an app and allows faster time to value for the business. Implementing business agility by integrating systems of record and creating an integrated process is an effective way to improve the overall business process and user experience by reducing the number of systems and logins required to get tasks done. Whether it's SAP, Oracle, Salesforce, or any other system of record, we have connectors and in some cases pre-built solutions that help simplify user experience and connect processes across these systems. Adapting a process to work more effectively across systems without having to change any of the underlying core systems allows you to empower corporate workers to do more with less effort and confusion. This can also reduce your training and support burden because even though the business process may span multiple systems, your users only need to understand how to use the application you have built. In many ways, hyperautomation is a combination of the other patterns. Many customers have begun empowering users by integrating legacy green screen apps with modern API-based apps using robotic process automation, or RPA. Another huge area of adoption has been embedding artificial intelligence functions, and now copilots, to offload some of the mundane work and allow users to focus on more productive tasks. And the ability to map processes, track their execution time and wait times, and then analyze and improve them, has made process mining a focus for many of our customers. Hyperautomation allows end users or low-code developers to automate processes where possible and ensure that you have on-ramps from and exits to applications and other systems where needed. Because we include the ability to build collaborative apps as part of our enterprise Office licenses, this is a common pattern that connects Power Platform with the productivity applications employees use every day in Microsoft Office and Teams. By creating purpose-built applications in Teams, you can accelerate processes and deliver better employee experiences. Moreover, by giving non-IT employees the tools and training they need to create applications for themselves or their department when they need it, many organizations have found that their departments can create, deploy, support, and improve applications faster than the IT development team. And using Power Platform instead of Excel, Access, or other client-focused technologies allows users to quickly create a solution to a problem while giving IT complete visibility into what's being created and control over who's using it and how the data is accessed and protected. Although we will touch on the other enterprise patterns of value as we talk about building enterprise applications on the Power Platform, application modernization and the reduction of the development backlog is perhaps the primary pattern that will benefit from an enterprise-wide, low-code adoption of the Power Platform. Even mid-sized companies will have hundreds of applications that run their business, and most enterprise customers have application requests in their backlog that extend into months or years. Later in this presentation, we'll look in depth at how building enterprise applications can not only accelerate application modernization, but also reduce both the backlog and your technical debt. By the end of this episode, you should have a clearer picture of how, and why you can implement the Power Platform to build enterprise applications. The Microsoft Cloud is a highly secure and manageable platform that allows you to build your own industry-specific components. It is also the platform on which the Power Platform is built, as well as Microsoft Dynamics and Microsoft 365. It's important to understand that although the Power Platform is built on Azure, it's not an Azure service. It's a software as a service development and runtime platform that wraps and consumes Azure services in a scalable, cost-effective manner as a low-code enterprise platform. It's also important to point out the Microsoft Power Platform can stand alone as an enterprise low-code platform, or it can be used from Microsoft Dynamics or from Microsoft 365. Let's take a deeper look at how Power Platform presents Azure capabilities to low-code developers. Let's look at the key capabilities of the Power Platform and what we consider to be the most complete low-code application platform available. It's not just for building web apps, but you can also build apps for mobile, apps that run in teams, and even for mixed reality devices like HoloLens. More importantly, you can start with no-code declarative programming, begin to write code in the form of macros or using our PowerFX language, and go all the way up to professional developers using C# or other languages that integrate with the Power Platform. The Power Platform allows you to build a composable user experience, declarative design, pixel-perfect pages, responsive, pro-dev extensions. Our logic and automation includes Power Automate, PowerFX, and even code plugins that let you extend with professional code. We have intelligence everywhere, from the ability to write code using GPT-3 to integrate with AI Builder, even using GPT-4 and large language models to actually generate applications. Our data and integration story includes not only Microsoft Dataverse, but also over 1,000 connectors to most major enterprise systems. And our application lifecycle and quality tools allow you to track, manage, and oversee the application lifecycle process. Perhaps most importantly, our security and governance story is second to none. You must authenticate with Azure Active Directory in order to use any part of the Power Platform. IT admins have full visibility into all the application systems, processes, people, all the essential elements of the system. Low-code developers have the ability to use advanced role-based access control to limit certain areas of their applications based on memberships and security groups. And even our connectors have very fine-grained control to ensure that only the data IT admins want users to consume can be consumed by low-code applications. As you begin implementing the Power Platform, you'll find that your organization progresses through several stages of maturity in both the type and scale of applications, as well as the security, management, and governance processes you implement to protect your corporate assets. One way to view these security and governance controls is through a maturity model. So if you'll notice in this adoption maturity model, as the complexity of the application increases and the number of users increase, the concern that the enterprise has about the application also increases. And so as you're building productivity model applications, primarily consuming SharePoint data, for example, these applications tend to be personal or team productivity apps. They're all team-based. There's limited strategy as to the development and deployment of these applications other than a genuine need that's being addressed. Over time, you'll find these processes or patterns that are repeatable, these simple business cases that can be used by multiple departments and maybe even developed, deployed, and managed by a central team. The more you build on the Power Platform, the more you'll begin to take the processes and the practices that you built and make them repeatable. You'll find ways to measure the success of the platform and the success of the low-code developers consuming the platform. But this can only take you so far, especially when most of the data you're consuming is in SharePoint, because your main focus has been on building productivity apps. Once you begin touching enterprise assets, systems of record, data that's from customers or for partners that's confidential, now you're moving into more mission-critical use cases, where applications need to be managed and monitored, where you need to have platform champions who oversee the activities of low-code developers, where you're really beginning to build your digital transformation practice. As you reach a higher level of maturity, you'll begin building organization-wide applications, and you'll have to have initiatives that support those. You'll have fusion teams that have both low-code and pro-code developers. You'll begin to see the patterns of value becoming conscious efforts to go build enterprise apps. That will include modernizing legacy apps, building new mission-critical apps, and then building the support infrastructure around those applications in the form of both communities of experts and centers of enablement. What you'll notice from this maturity model is that as you begin accessing protected enterprise assets, the level of control and management, the level of governance and security, these all have to increase because now you have low-code developers, and in some cases citizen developers, who are given access to enterprise assets that need to be managed and monitored. There are two primary application models used when building Microsoft Power Platform applications. One is the productivity application model, which focuses on extending Office 365. The other is in building enterprise applications that may have previously been built entirely using pro-code tools. Citizen developers with Microsoft 365 licenses can build applications using the productivity application model using a myriad of services. They can use the Power BI desktop client to build reports against their productivity application sources. They can use Power Apps to build their own applications. They can use Power Automate for workflow and process automation. It's important to understand that the Power Automate license included with Office 365 allows you to build flows that are either in the context of an Office service, that is, it's executing based on a trigger in SharePoint or Exchange, or it's in the context of a Power App. For example, the user doesn't allow a user to build a standalone flow that accesses any connector unless it's either driven by a Power App or has an Office service accessed within the flow. This is one of the reasons that in the earlier Enterprise Blueprint, we suggested that customers block all non-Office connectors inside of the default environment. This not only ensures that people building applications on the productivity application model are only using productivity's data sources, but also helps to ensure that users don't create applications or flows that are outside the context of their license. In addition to the ability to build workflow processes with Power Automate, we've also included the ability from inside of Teams to build intelligent virtual agents using Microsoft Copilot technology. That same technology is being put in place for Power Apps and Power Automate for any maker so that it can help them to build applications by giving them assisted development as part of the development process. Microsoft includes limited Dataverse support in the Microsoft 365 license for the productivity application model. There are two key areas where you'll see Dataverse surfaced. The first is in admin mode functions that support features like approvals. This is where Dataverse is only accessible through one of the connectors that consumes it. We also provide Dataverse core relational database functions with 3 predefined roles that are exposed in Teams environments. Another type of productivity application is an extension to Office. Extensions built from the user interface of the Office service, i.e. SharePoint custom forms, are an example of an application extension. The permissions for these apps are managed through the underlying Office service and not through Dataverse permissions. In other words, if I want to control who can access a custom form on a SharePoint list, I don't do that through Dataverse security. I do that through SharePoint list level security. In addition to application extensions, I can also build an application directly from the Maker portal in Power Apps. In this case, I'm building
Power Apps and Cloud Flows that use Office services, but I'm using them as data sources as opposed to building them as Office extensions. These apps are actually managed through the Dataverse permissions. The underlying data permissions, as in all connectors in the Power Platform, are still managed through the underlying service, in this case, Microsoft Office. So what's the difference in an application built using the productivity application model and the enterprise application model? What are the components of a classic enterprise application built entirely with pro-code tools? Enterprise applications include many interrelated components, including a user interface, workflow processes that guide the user through the application, business process rules that configure the UI for users' authorizations, the business rules that govern the business process, data integrity constraints that ensure data is maintained consistently and that all transactions commit properly or roll back, and a data layer that manages reference, application, and process data. When pro-code developers build their applications, they must decide which tools they will use to build out each layer of an application stack. As different teams of pro-code developers with different skill sets and knowledge build their applications on their unique application stacks, the enterprise begins assuming technical debt for maintaining not only the apps, but also the stacks that they're built on. For example, when a new release of a UI framework is released, it must be tested for both compatibility with the rest of the app stack, and apps must be tested and upgraded to consume the new release. At a minimum, this exercise must happen whenever a tool is deprecated or goes out of support. The Power Platform, on the other hand, is an application stack as a service. Microsoft manages the application stack, relieving the enterprise from having to manage multiple application stacks in use across the organization. Application builders can focus on the capabilities of their applications and can take advantage of new features when they're ready. This removes barriers to business transformation by expanding the number of developers, moving application definition, prototyping, and development closer to the business process, and reducing the burden on IT to support the application stack. Even though Power Platform is a hosted service, it can easily be integrated with existing enterprise infrastructure for application lifecycle management, security, auditing, and governance. This gives IT organizations full visibility, management, and control of the SaaS application stack as implemented in their organization. It eliminates shadow IT. By moving out of the application stack business, the enterprise is no longer responsible for things like sizing, installing, deploying, configuring, optimizing, and all the other things required of maintaining an application stack. And this is how customers are able to reduce long-term technical debt, by moving off of stacks that they're paying to maintain and the applications on those stacks which need to be updated, and by allowing Microsoft to maintain the application stack as a service so they can focus on the core functionality of the application. This is not radically different from the move from on-premise Exchange to online Exchange. Rather than having to manage the servers and the disks and the networking infrastructure to allow people to use email, organizations who moved their Exchange application stack to the cloud can now focus on providing value for collaboration. So Microsoft's taking the model of moving from on-prem to the cloud and dramatically extending it now, so that I can build applications on a hosted, managed platform and minimize my long-term investment in additional proprietary application stacks. So what capabilities do I have in the enterprise application model that I don't have in the productivity application model? The governance, security, and capability demands for enterprise applications are much greater than those for productivity apps. Enabling enterprise applications adds new Power Automate capability, like robotic process automation and process mining, standalone processes. It adds business websites using Power Pages, enhanced AI capabilities and copilots running outside of teams and accessing other enterprise systems. These new capabilities are exposed to low-code developers in a secure, consistent way so that they can build highly functional applications by simply taking advantage of the capabilities built into the Power Platform application stack. Copilot can be extended with the Enterprise Stack to work with Dataverse and other premium connectors, allowing low-code developers to get help building enterprise apps using enterprise data stores. As the Power Platform app stack is built on Azure, we make it simple to integrate with all Azure services with a consistent security model. We also integrate seamlessly with other enterprise systems using myriad technologies, including our connectors, Dataverse virtual tables, the data gateway, and custom connectors that support REST APIs and OData access. We also provide standard integration points into the Power Platform, which allow code-first developers to extend the reach of the Power Platform into their organization and to reuse other enterprise assets. These extensibility points include custom UI components, which can be derived from existing web assets using React, custom connectors with C# extensions to allow integration with existing enterprise systems, and Dataverse plugins, which allow deep integration between Dataverse and other enterprise systems, seamlessly moving data between these endpoints. Microsoft provides the tooling to allow organizations to integrate our enterprise application stack with their current DevOps pipeline, whether that uses GitHub Actions, Azure DevOps, or even a homegrown ALM system, through customization of the ALM Starter Kit. All code promotion to production is visible and manageable through the company's existing DevOps infrastructure. As you'll see later in this series, we've even implemented a new capability for integrated ALM at the product level, which makes it simple for low-code developers to participate in lifecycle management. In episode 1 of this series, we've looked at the driving factors and common patterns for enterprise application model development on the Power Platform. I've also shown you how Dataverse is the key enabling technology which allows low-code developers to build robust enterprise mode applications by providing not only capabilities at every layer of an application stack, but also key capabilities for enterprise development, like lifecycle management, governance, and security. Because Dataverse is such an important component of the Power Platform stack, we'll spend all of episode 2 in this series explaining what Dataverse is and isn't, and how your company can best leverage both Dataverse and the connector infrastructure to ensure you are protecting your enterprise sources of truth while making critical enterprise data and process available to low-code developers and to your users.